people, what's going on? Semaj Marsh, the founder of BlueDeathDiet.com. And I want to welcome you back to another episode of Inside the Valley, the podcast that's devoted to relentless coverage of A&T football. And once again, to make that possible, I have two guys who are pretty much considered A&T royalty. First of all, former A&T wide receiver and Greensboro native, Doug Brown. What's going on, Doug?
What's up, Aggie Pride?
And of course, the heart and soul of the operations, the longtime football insider and a senior beat writer for BlueDeathDiet.com for over 2 decades, my right-hand man, Craig Turner. What's going on, Craig?
Hey, nothing much, man. Back for another week. Ready to get on Central this week. Let's get to it.
Hey, you just said it. This is Buzzard Week. We face those pesky buzzards from North Carolina Central. Both teams are kind of coming in this matchup looking for a statement, I would say. We're, of course, coming in at 0-2 after a 45-17 loss to Duke 2 weeks ago. And Central is stumbling into this matchup at 2-1, but they did not look that great in their last matchup last weekend against Winston-Salem State. That outcome was 20-13 in Central's favor. They came back in the fourth quarter, scored a late touchdown. But for the most part, I watched that game on replay, and for the most part, I thought Winston-Salem State dominated a lot of the action in that game for at least about 3/4 of that game. And Central once again came out the end. But it's going to be a heated rivalry. You always got to throw the records out the book when you get two teams that hate each other as much as these schools hate each other. Craig, tell me right now, who are some guys on Central's roster that we need to worry about?
Well, the quarterback Richards is coming into his own as a sophomore. He's a big kid, he's about 6'2", about 220, 225 or so. Does a real good job with RPO. Has a fairly good arm, and he's the guy who really makes Central's offense really roll. As he goes, so goes Central. They have Isaiah Totten, who's been around for like 500 years. I mean, literally,
yes, he has.
he's been there a long time. He's one of the better bats in the MEAC. Not the biggest guy in the world, but he's very quick. Got nice explosion and cutback ability. Those two guys really stand out. They got a really good return guy in Brandon Codgerton. He's really good on kickoff returns and punt returns. Had a big kickoff return with the Alcorn State game. We had a big punt return up at Marshall.
I remember that. Right.
Yeah, so those three guys really jump out at you when you look at Central's lineup.
Is it fair to say that just looking at Central on film, are they a little bit more athletic than we remember them a couple years ago?
Yeah, they definitely improved ball club. Looks like they bulked up a little bit, able to add some speed and some size and some skill to their ball club. And, that's what we expect out of Coach Oliver. We know he's a heck of a coach, and we didn't think it'd take long for him to get turned around down there. But definitely a different team than we've seen over the last couple of years, or at least in 2019. And you would expect them to improve, but we're an improved ball club too, and I think that'll show on the field on Saturday. And it's nice to get back on our home grass. I think it was nice to get what I considered the first part of the season sound kind of like our preseason. We know there's no preseason in college football, but we were able to kind of manage a mini season, if you'll say, and put some practice days behind it, and we'll roll out there. And I think it'll be a new team you see on Saturday.
And Doug, let me tell you one thing. When I was watching that tape, one thing that stood out was just at their secondary. I thought that might be a position that we could exploit with our big athletic receivers. What do you think that matchup is going to look like on the perimeter as far as on our end? If Fowler comes back healthy and he's able to take some shots downfield like we did against Furman, I like our chances against Central secondary.
Well, me, I'm an outside receiver guy, so I'm always going to ride for my guys out there. But that's definitely a position area that I think we match up well against anybody that we walk out there against, man. I think we have that advantage. I know Mr. Fowler will be anxious to get back out there and show what he can do at home, in his first start at home in Aggie Stadium. So I'm looking for that group to step up and do some big things. I mean, we just want to kind of get the ball in those guys' hands, whether it's down the field, whether it's something short across the middle, laterally. I'm looking just for us to get the ball in some of our playmakers' hands, man, and get them in space and see what they can do.
And Doug, at the press conference, Coach Washington said, don't be surprised if we see Kingsley and Fetty again, even if Fowler's back healthy. I think, and I asked him point blank if Fetty has earned more reps and maybe his own little package in the offense. And Coach Washington said yes. So that could be another kind of wrinkle to the game plan.
Well, I mean, Coach is definitely a straight shooter, so he didn't hold back in saying that if Fetty was going to get a chance to make some plays out there, and he's earned that right, man. I think anytime you go in and able to help the team the way he did against Duke, he's kind of earned the right to have some snaps out there. But I would definitely look to throw him in and change up the pace of game if needed. He's definitely a team guy. He's always been right there by the coaching staff and in the coach's hip pocket. So he's ready if his name is called, and I would look for him to jump in there and make some plays for us whenever the time is needed.
Craig, what are your just general expectations on Saturday of how we should perform?
It's going to be a competitive ball game. I don't see another 54 or 45-0 beatdown. I mean, I don't see it with this Central team. They're a lot better than they were 2 years ago, much better. I think Davis Richard at quarterback, he's the straw that stirs the drink. Everything they do generates off of his ability to run that RPO. And that's going to be the key in this ball game, I believe. We have got to be able to stop their running game and stop him and Totten from getting outside and getting into a comfort zone inside the tackles into the running lane. If we can do that, we'll be fine.
So will we even see him this week? Because last game against Salem State, they had some gentleman by the name of Walker Texas Ranger Harris, a true freshman quarterback. and I gotta be honest with you, he didn't put a lot of fear in my heart from just from the tape I saw. So I think the other guy must have gotten hurt against Marshall, and I'm not sure what the extent of his injury was, but he didn't play against Winston last week.
Right, Richard was out last week because of injury. I think he got his bell rung up at Marshall, and they set him out this week, and it's day by day going into Saturday. So regardless of whether he plays or not, same thing still applies. We have got to be able to shut down their perimeter run game, because that's where they really hurt you at. Getting back to 3 defensive linemen this week is especially on the inside, especially between the tackles. And hopefully, and I understand Jermaine Medina is going to play this week. That is a huge lift to that defensive front, especially when it comes to applying pressure on the quarterback. Central can throw the ball, but they're not. They use their tight ends quite a bit. They throw a lot of seam routes. They try to find a soft spot in between the linebackers and the safeties. They like to run that. They like to run that kind of a skinny type post and curl routes to the inside. So our linebackers are going to have to be alert, and our safeties are going to have to make sure that they hit the right assignments as far as picking up those people coming out of there. But if we do what we need to do, if we are focused, and I think that's the biggest thing this week is going to be focus. If we're focused, we should handle them.
And Doug, there's been a lot of talk, like we said last week, about the secondary. Did not look good against Duke at the end of the second quarter and pretty much all the second half. What do you think that the game plan this week is going to be as far as getting those guys a little more confident? And I think Coach Washington did say that at least Amir McNeil should be returning back to the starting lineup. So what are your thoughts about the secondary in this matchup?
Well, first, I think it all starts with personnel. I think getting our guys back out there and being healthy. Hopefully, we're a little more healthy than we've been in the last couple of games. And then I'll say our scheme, man. I hope to see us be a little more aggressive and get some guys' faces and challenge those guys at the line of scrimmage, challenge them at the sticks, and see if we can compete a little harder on some of those balls, those third down balls, and those game-changing plays that I consider, that are right there for us to be made. So personnel, I think is a big deal. Like I said, I go with personnel and just shoring up some things on the back end in our scheme. But I'm excited, man. I think those guys will be fired up. We got a bunch of young guys back there that were able to get some experience in the Duke game as well as the Furman game. So I look for those guys to come home and play well, inside the friendly confines of Aggie Stadium.
Well, guys, like we said, this is going to be a huge game. We got a big week coming up. And tonight I got a special guest, somebody from A&T, who's going to talk about the ins and outs of this new safety policy at Truist Stadium. I'd like to bring on Carl Hairston, the Associate Athletic Director for External Affairs. What's going on, Carl?
Not too much. Thank you for having me, Semaj. Appreciate it.
The pleasure's all mine. Now, Carl, tell us about this weekend, because I know everybody's excited about going back to Truist Stadium, see the boys back in action. It's been almost 2 years. And the main thing is we want to make sure that we're doing everything to be as safe as possible. And this week, the school has announced some new safety protocols for entrance into the stadium. Can you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, it's been, I think, a little over 600 something days since we last played. So obviously a lot has changed. 2 weeks ago at this point, we put out some information that requires all fans to either have a COVID vaccination or a negative PCR test within the past 72 hours. So that would be taking a PCR test Wednesday and getting your results back, Friday or so, and bring those results to the stadium. I did want to make sure that people understood PCR. A lot of places have the rapid antigen test, and so that is not the test that we were requiring. We were requiring that PCR. That's usually a 72 hours. And one of the things that we released today was just some more information on how to show that either proof of vaccination or proof of negative test. We have 14 sites that are on campus in various parking lots or various open areas that people will be able to walk up and show that vaccination card or even a picture of the card as well as your photo ID. I think I left that out. And then show their negative test, receive a wristband, and then they'll be able to proceed to the stadium, show their ticket and show their wristband, and you're good to go. And the thought of doing those vaccination sites, we've talked to a couple other schools that are doing something similar, is just really to keep a bottleneck away from the gate. We don't want someone trying to come to the gate, show the ticket, show the vaccine card, and you'd just be waiting there forever. So we think these sites will help us out. There's one drive-through site, as you'll see on the map at War Memorial Stadium. So people who park in A3 or A4, or the blue and gold lots, the ones that are right around the stadium inside a game zone, you can actually drive through that one. And so coming down Lindsay, traffic will go the other way. So it used to go starting like at the Napa, at the corner of headquarters in Lindsay, coming down through the stadium. You'll come the opposite way now. So you could drive up, coming from like the post office, State Employees Credit Union, that area, stop in War Memorial. You don't have to get out your car. You show your vaccine for everyone who's in the car. You'll all get wristbands, and then you'll be able to drive straight into your lot. So that should, hopefully, cut down on a bottleneck there. It'll be a little pretty easy for our people to get in and out.
Yo, that is amazing. I got to tell you, listen, because I was one of the strongest, proponents or advocates for a vaccine mandate at A&T football games this year. Right, glad.
Yeah.
I was hoping someone saw it. That was my purpose. Okay.
I know you want to take credit for it. We definitely have been working on it for a while. Yeah. I will say that. So, but yeah, it was good that you yourself and other people were excited for that and wanted us to do that. It wasn't kind of we didn't really get much negative feedback from really just making sure our fans are safe that come out to the game.
And you told me something Monday that blew my mind. We are the only school in North Carolina that currently has a vaccine mandate.
Yep. I want to say, I think I saw Winston-Salem State is doing something starting. I don't know. I think they have a game this weekend. I don't know if it's starting this weekend, but their release came out after ours. But yeah, so now we're the first.
We're first though.
We're the first one.
Hey,
gotcha.
Always.
Aggies do. We're ahead of the curve. I like that. Good job, Kyle.
Always
appreciate that.
But listen, I know you can't say too much inside baseball here, but as far as this, the thought process and getting all that established, there had to be a ton of internal meetings and experts and checking with legal. Can we do this? Can we do that? Just how extensive was that process from the time when you wanted to think about doing it till last week when you officially announced it?
I've been in meetings today about it still, just making sure we're straight. Yeah. But yeah, this is definitely a full university project. Obviously athletics was at the head of it, but our partners over at Campus Enterprise, who oversee the ticket office and parking, very integral in making this happen. You mentioned legal, just making sure this is something that we're allowed to do and how we push out. And then our partners over at University Relations, which is our communication office for the entire university, help pushing out the message. And obviously the chancellor's office was involved because, like you said, there's so many moving parts. There are people who are invited to the game who you may not even, really think about, who we need to make sure are verified before they come in, vendors who are dropping stuff off, or people who deliver things. There's so many moving parts on game day that obviously we had to have everyone involved who has any part of game day.
Gotcha. Well, I think it's outstanding. I mean, it just shows you that you care about your fans, you care about everybody who's going to be around the stadium, and to do that and to be the trailblazers. I think that says a lot about you guys.
Absolutely.
And I just take my hat off to you, man. Like I said, I was one of the main people chirping on social media, calling everybody out. Let's get this done yesterday. And you guys took your time, but you did it. And I'm super pleased. Now, listen, I have a 11-year-old son, right? So he obviously can't get the vaccine, but I can just take him, you said, to I guess a drugstore or a health provider somewhere.
CVS, something like that. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And get what's the name of the test called? It's the
PCR test.
It's a PCR test.
Yeah.
And so this, from now, this video, this show will probably air on Thursday. So anytime between Thursday and game time, if he gets a negative result, he's good to go, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And the majority of those places you mentioned do PCR. The only one we don't take is that rapid antigen, which our students and staff on campus can take. It's like 15 minutes until you get the results. And so that one is not as accurate as the PCR test. So that's why we decided to go with that one. And that's usually the case for most other universities who are doing this, as well as any concerts or anything like that. They're requiring that PCR test.
Do you have a recommended time on how early people should get to the stadium to go through that process?
It really depends on kind of where you are, and obviously this being our first time, we're just encouraging people to get there as early as possible. We spread out those vaccine check locations throughout campus to try to give people as many options wherever they're parking or wherever they're kind of walking up from. But so say, for instance, if you're someone who parks in maybe Laurel Street, there's a couple of sites there, maybe adding an extra 20, 30 minutes onto what you normally would do just from walking up to the site and, showing that and then walking over to the stadium. But we're hopeful because there's so many and because we're trying to push the word out that people will get there early and there won't be, like I said, bottlenecks. The biggest thing is make sure there's not bottlenecks at the ticket booths. And that's why you see the majority of our locations are a little bit away from that. So you don't have people trying to do the same thing at one time.
So once you get your wristband, then you go to the regular ticket, the regular gate, and you show your ticket or your whatever,
your pass or whatever.
Or whatever. And then when you're inside the stadium, are masks mandatory or what's
they're not mandatory. We're suggesting mask wearing.
Okay.
But yeah, it's not one of those. It's not required, but it's highly suggested.
Okay.
And obviously, like you said earlier, we feel a little bit safer because we know that at least everyone inside is tested negative COVID or has a vaccine.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
I got one question, Carl. On tailgaters, there's probably going to be the usual amount of tailgaters there this year, COVID or no COVID. Fans love to tailgate.
They're going to tailgate. They're going to be out there.
They're going to be out there. they will need to come down Lindsay instead of turning off of Bessemer to just go into reverse order this year.
Exactly. Yeah. So like I said, coming from, I guess, like the farmers market area, going into War Memorial, and then go straight that way down Lindsay, like you said, into the stadium.
Okay. So is that station going to be in that parking lot, in that long parking lot at Memorial, or is it going to be on the street itself?
And it'll be in the parking lot, in War Memorial parking lot. Yeah.
All right. That just want to clarify for all those tailgaters will be out.
Yeah. And it's on the sheet as well, but it opens the same time that those lots open, so 5 hours before the game. So if you're one of those tailgaters that gets there bright and early to get started, I would suggest getting to that a lot early so you're good to go.
That's awesome, man.
Great.
All right, so Carl, real quick now, what the hell is the associate athletic director for external affairs? Because I thought I was inviting you on because you were the marketing guy. So now I see this big old title here. I'm looking at your business card. So give me, in a nutshell, just tell me what is your overall job responsibilities in that title?
Gotcha. So a lot of my job is focused on revenue generation, obviously. Oversee all of our marketing as well as all of our corporate partnerships. So like, I'm trying to think of something exciting. The Bojangles thing. We have an A&T Bow Box now.
Okay.
So it's something that myself and my staff work on. Also work with community relations. So our community outreach game next week, things like that. My staff works with that. And then some things on the administrative side. I work with football specifically for like non-conference scheduling, which is pretty cool. So getting some nice games lined up for them down the line. And then just like I said, just general, administrative things like this, special events when we have, I guess, like Celebration Bowls. So making sure that the Celebration Bowl people had everything they need from our end. Did that for the playoffs back in 2016, and hopefully we'll be doing that again when we go to playoffs this year. So it's other duties as a sign is definitely in there.
Now, Carl, you talked about out of conference. I'm glad you mentioned that. You are not an Aggie, correct? Originally?
Correct. No.
But you married an Aggie.
I married an Aggie. Yeah, you did the research.
Smart man. Tell us, man. Tell us, how did that experience and how did you all meet? How did that kind of shape you as an Aggie now? Because we consider you part of the Aggie family now, man. You definitely an Aggie in our book.
Definitely.
But
absolutely.
Tell us about
she can probably hear me, so I'm gonna tell my version of the story.
Oh, there you go. Smarter.
No, so I got to A&T in 2015, the beginning of 2015. Came from Elon University. I went for undergrad, and I was raised a Ram actually. Both my parents went to Winston State, worked there. Lifelong fans. I think they're going to the Winston State game this weekend before they come over to A&T. So, but yeah, so my wife works in student activities, and they needed our assistance kind of at an event essentially, and so we had some interaction there. Didn't see her for maybe another 6 months, 7 months, and then had a random run in, and just had a conversation. And I went to her office the next day and asked her, the assistant, if I could get her phone number to ask something. Assistant said, yeah.
Sneak tip.
I'll get to that. I'll explain why that makes sense.
Okay.
And so I told her it was work related. She was like, yeah. And so I texted her basically an inside joke that we had in that initial conversation. And I didn't say my name or anything. So she knew exactly who it was as soon as I texted her. But as part of the inside joke, she was saying that luckily I don't have her phone number in our first conversation. So I took that as she wanted me to have her phone number. And so we went from there. And I don't know if you can hear her, she's yelling in the background. That's why I put my AirPods.
Hey, bring on. Hey, you gotta bring in. Bring in.
I'll let you. Hold on. Let me take this out so you can hear.
Oh, how you doing?
Hey.
How you doing?
Hey, how you doing?
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. I hear he's telling fallacies on me tonight.
He's telling an Aggie love story.
Exactly.
Doug knows.
Doug, that sounds good, darling. That sounds real good.
No,
But as you can see, we're still together now. So
that's perfect.
Went from that first text to dating and got married 2 years later, or 2.5 years later, and still together.
Congratulations.
Got married during football season, which was interesting.
On campus.
Yeah.
Well, Carl, you know how I met my wife?
You told me, I think. That was a good story.
This dude right here, Doug Brown, his football team was getting worked against Southern in 2003 in Las Vegas. And so Doug was kind of like my unofficial wingman. They was getting the hell beat out of them so bad. It was a perfect segue to talk to this young lady in front of me, 2 rows ahead of me. And she ended up being my wife. And she wouldn't probably give me a time of day if there was anything to watch on the football field. So everybody, hey, listen.
We did what you do, man. We did what we could do, man.
So that's the only time where A&T loss was a good thing?
Yeah,
right, man.
exactly.
You still thanking me to this day, man.
That changed my life. That changed my life. But man, but Carl, I really appreciate you coming out here, man. And man, this has been really fun. I am looking forward to this weekend. I know that you guys are gonna have all the bases covered, and we're gonna be super safe, or as safe as humanly possible in a global pandemic. But thank you guys for all the hard work behind the scenes. Is there anything else we need to know as far as?
I was gonna add just a couple things we have going on. Is our Hall of Fame game. So we have a class of 10. This is technically the class of 2020. It'll get recognized. We'll do two separate recognitions for them. So we'll do one pregame. Because it's 10 people, it's hard to get in an immediate timeout all of their information. So we want to do right by them and give them a proper introduction pregame, about 25 minutes out before the game starts. And then during the game, we'll also bring them back on the field. And then we'll have a special appearance by our Olympians. So we'll recognize our track Olympians during the game, as well as our national champions and everyone that participated at NCAA nationals during the game. And then we have a couple other special recognitions throughout for some special surprises, I guess. But it should be a really, really fun atmosphere.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the best way to stay abreast of everything you guys got going on? Because I know it's like a ton of things. Is Twitter, Facebook? I mean, what's the best way we can stay?
Yeah, we try to put stuff, on multiple avenues. Obviously, any social media site that you have, we're on. So on Twitter at NCAT Aggies or NCAT Aggie Marketing. It has updates on games or anything like that, and then same on Facebook and Instagram. Gotcha. And always the website as well, ncataggies.com.
Hey, before I let you go, let me ask you this. What's the one thing you think that's changed about your job since you took over? Because I know you said you started in 2015.
Yeah.
What's the biggest social media? What's the biggest just
probably digital. Probably digital media, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Because when I came to A&T, I just did marketing. I didn't do the sponsorship. I didn't do any of the other stuff. Those are all duties that have been added recently. And so, which is good. I'm happy for it, to be honest.
That's a good thing.
But yeah, digital marketing. When I came in, we were heavy newspaper and print ads, which are good, and there's a certain portion of the population who that's where they go to look for ads. If they want to know about something, they're going to go read the paper. But it's hard to track. So when you don't have $1 million marketing budget, you need to make sure that the money you are spending is going to the right place. So digital is kind of scary. I can look and see if you open the email. I can look and see if you clicked on my ad. And if you clicked on the ad and you didn't buy anything, then I can send that ad to you again and try to get you back to the website. So it's a lot easier to say we spent $100 on this ad and we made $300 based off ticket sales. And it's hard to do that with print media. So that's probably the biggest thing, is that switch. And then obviously NIL, which is a big thing now.
Wow.
That's probably a whole another episode. But we've done some really good things in that space and educating our student athletes on what they can do. Our state doesn't have a statewide policy like a Florida or some other places. So we have a university-wide policy. Our student athletes have to abide by. We work with a group called Influencer that gives them information on, how to properly, mark down their contracts or whatever they're getting. and then train them on different ways to just be to brand themselves and be open to, you know, companies that may reach out. So yeah, that's the biggest one, and it will continue to change. If you had me on in 2 months, I would probably have something completely different on NIL than I have right now.
Well, listen, I do want to bring you back, but in the meantime, we got a bunch of just experts in marketing on BlueDeathValley.com. So I don't know. Can I give them your cell phone number, because they have all these ideas? Listen,
you get my email address.
Listen, they have all these brilliant ideas what A&T needs to be doing more of, from billboards to, I think, you know, some people you want to do like the Goodyear blimp still. You know, everybody has a brilliant idea.
We have billboards now. We do.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we do billboards. Yeah.
But yeah, marketing is like coaching. Everybody thinks they can do it.
Exactly, right. And they all want to spend like your money, not theirs. So everybody thinks you have an endless amount of money to spend on this stuff. So yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it. And I know you got to get on to your beautiful wife and get ready for this big weekend. But thank you for all that great information. And we're definitely going to bring you back if that's not a problem. We want to bring you back so some future shows so you can talk about other promotions you got going on. But we'll just tell everybody check with all the social media stuff and the website for more information.
Absolutely. Yeah. All the stuff we talked about lives on the website. Is a page dedicated to COVID updates on nchat.edu. So everything you can need is right there. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'll definitely be back.
Thank you. This has been fun, man. Appreciate it. Well, guys, this is also the Hall of Fame induction weekend for the latest class of the A&T Sports Hall of Fame. And actually, tonight we got a special guest, one of those inductees, a friend of mine, actually, Mr. Al Barnett. What's going on, Al?
Hey, how we doing? How's everybody doing tonight?
Doing well. Good to see you.
Doing good, Al.
Well, first of all, I want to say congratulations, man. That's a tremendous honor. Just give us all an idea. What was that phone call like to hear that you were going to be inducted to the A&T Sports Hall of Fame?
Well, for me, I guess everyone's induction is a little different. And for me, it just meant an opportunity to say thank you. I came across some wonderful people, some of the best friends and best individuals one could ever come across during my time at A&T. And quite frankly, Doug's father, the legendary Coach Ralph Brown, is one of those individuals. And for me, A&T was just a phenomenal opportunity to compete, but also to be mentored and molded by, again, some of the best individuals one could ever come across. And so, receiving that phone call was, again, a tribute to those individuals who, poured a lot into me and really believed in me and pushed me to be the very best I could become.
And it's been a while since your playing days, concluded. Was this something that you were thinking about over the years? Were you waiting for? Were you thinking about, maybe I got my shot, or like, how does that work? Because it's a little bit of a time gap between your last game and now.
Well, I've known you over the years, and you always ask some very phenomenal and insightful questions, and quite frankly, they border on provocative. But and so I was looking forward to this. I'm just gonna call it what it is.
Really?
And so for me, I'm kind of an old school dude. I just want an opportunity to knock somebody out. All this other stuff, I really didn't care for. And quite frankly, a friend of mine it took him 4 years to convince me to go through the process. Because, for me, I loved my time, enjoyed my teammates, the coaching staff. And for me, that was it. That was the pinnacle. So, everything else that came after that to me was just gravy. I was encouraged to go through the process, but I never did. I never made time. And now a legendary, coach, Warren Reynolds, convinced me that it wasn't about me. It was about a legacy. It was about being an example for my son, my daughter. It was about having an opportunity to say thank you for to my parents for all their years of sacrifice. And so he convinced me to go through the process, and quite frankly, it meant a lot to him. And because it meant a lot to him, it meant a lot to me as well. And so for me, it just started with the opportunity to go in the Hall of Fame with him. And I thought that would be just super cool. And, he coached basketball in the late 60s, early 70s. We became good friends by his daughter, Crystal Zealous. And then we had just a great relationship as we took my son and his grandson to various camps across the country. And unfortunately, he passed away before his actual announcement. So, so this weekend is kind of bittersweet from that regard.
Right. So let me actually go through the list, because there's 9 other people besides yourself who will be inducted this weekend. Former coach Don Corbett and, as you said, Mr. Warren Big Time Reynolds.
Mm-hmm.
They both of them have passed. And 3 members of the basketball program, Joe Binion, Eric Boyd, and Bruce Jenkins III. A track and field star, Odell Benders Jr. And then as far as football goes, we got Quazine Mitchell, Big Quazine, Timothy Williams, and your secondary mate, Curtis Bergens.
Curtis Bergens.
And listen, Doug, and this is the thing. I met Al. I'll tell you, I got a story about how I met Al. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, right? But ever since I know Al, he is humble to a fault, right?
Oh.
Because if you don't know this guy, you're like, he's just a regular, good-looking middle-aged man, not gonna bother anybody. Listen, if you put on his tape, and we got the 91 South Carolina State game on our website.
State game, yeah.
Listen, that was the Legion of Boom.
Yeah.
Those guys were knocking people's heads off in that secondary. You and Curtis, man, that was the original Blue Death. Like, we wouldn't have our website name if not for you gentlemen. So
those guys, man, those guys are literally were my heroes growing up. I mean, that's probably some of my earliest memories of really understanding football and watching guys play and say, wow, I want to play the game like that guy plays, or I like the way that guy carries himself. And those guys are still my role models today. When I see Al and he's out and about and he's doing his thing and he's representing A&T, I mean, he's the same guy, that same consistent role model that he was when I was a little youngster running around the team. And so, he's modest and he's a quiet guy, but I mean, he played with Kurt on the other side, so he didn't have to say or do too much because Kurt's gonna be loud and do his thing. So I think those guys really balanced each other out, man. 2 phenomenal guys for them both to have the type of careers they had on the back end and the secondary and have those interception numbers they put up. I think 19 and 20 interceptions apiece, man.
Right.
That's just phenomenal. But those guys definitely paved the way. And when you talk Blue Death, we say it and we hear it in the stadium, but for those guys, I mean, it was a way of life, and they really set the tone and established that path for guys that we see today.
That's really kind of you, Doug. I appreciate those kind words, and I hadn't really thought about it, but to be a part of the original Blue Death is huge. And what I remember about that group was Coach Linwood Ferguson was our defensive coordinator, and he was intense. and quite frankly, still intense to this day. I talk to him probably once or twice a week. Again, we schematically were very sound. We used a lot of schemes that Miami and a couple other programs at that time were using, where we would roll coverage and do some things, especially against Bethune-Cookman. They like to throw the ball a lot. And we were just well prepared. And he would always say, when the ball's in the air, either 2 things happen. Either it was a kill shot or an interception. I mean, and so we did try him on that. And he had something where if the film cut off and he didn't see at least 8 hats around the ball, it was trouble. And so we always closed up. And if the camera guy cut it off, and he didn't count 8 guys in that shot, it was rough the next day. It really was. But again, it taught us to be tenacious. It taught us not to make any excuses, and it taught us to be around the ball. And it was amazing that when you close the ball up like that, and that thing pops loose, and when you unexpectedly see it on the ground, I mean, you're in position to pick it up and take it the other way. So I think my junior year, we led the NCAA. 1AA at the time in turnover margin. I think we were plus either 13 or 19, something like that. But we led the country, and that again started that Blue Death defense.
Well, let me stop you there, because in your junior year, you also set a record for 11 interceptions in one season, which is still a record that stands today. Ain't nobody breaking that record, dude. I don't care. Mac McCain, I don't care who comes back. Nobody is breaking 11 interceptions in 1 year. That's unreal. I don't know how the hell were they still throwing the ball in your direction. At what point do they not realize this is a bad idea?
He was everywhere.
Hey, they made up for my senior year though. They made up for my senior year. They only had 3 then, so they figured it out after that first.
They figured it out. They figured it out.
Yeah.
But we also, if you remember, we also had Reggie White and Knox Thompson and Kevin Little, and Skibo. I mean, and those guys would absolutely lay you out. And when you get that kind of pressure on the ball, it makes my job just a little easier. And then we had offense for Connell. And so when you put up a lot of points, you got the rush. Again, we were back there licking our chops.
And so you guys actually won the HBCU National Championship in 1990?
Right, 1990.
And you have 2 MEAC titles under your belt too. So you have a decorated career. But the funny thing is, you say your defensive coordinator was Linwood Ferguson, and Doug, if I'm not mistaken, he was actually your offensive coordinator in 2002, still back under Bill Hayes. So
That's right.
So both of you guys, tell me a Linwood Ferguson story, okay? I want both of you guys to jump in on this. First of all, you Doug, give me an offensive coordinator Linwood Ferguson story.
Well, I tell you what, when Coach Ferg came back to A&T, I think it was the summer of 2002, he actually brought the spread offense with him. So, you know, the spread was a new thing. And, you know, Coach Hayes is a ground and pound, 3 yards, cloud dust kind of guy. And so, you know, to hear Coach Ferg come back, who I knew was a defensive guy, who I knew and had known me ever since I was a small child, to hear him come back, you know, trying to sell us on a new offense. I'm like, Coach Ferg, you know, you coach defense. What? We're on the wrong side of the ball, but I mean, he had a fantastic offense. I want to say he was somewhere, maybe in Texas or something, but fantastic offense. And he was telling us how the spread was going to take over. It was a new offense in college football. We're going to throw it X amount of times a game. We're going to take short breaks in between the plays. And, you know, it was new to all of us. To see that offense kind of take off years later and kind of be what you see all across the board and kind of change the way that football is played now. He got that part right. It just took us a while to get it going. And, you know, Coach Hayes isn't too patient of a guy. So before we got through midway through the season, Coach Hayes was scrapping the offense and say, just line down and give me a toss right. So, you know, but Coach Ferg did his thing, man. He's always been an Aggie supporter. He will be and always be an Aggie, whether he's coaching, you know, here or down the street in Winston or anywhere else he's been. He's an Aggie through and true, and he'll always be the orchestrator of the Blue Death defense. But Coach Ferg, my fondest memories of Coach Ferg are back when he was coaching Al and those guys, and he would be in the film room and he'd be a frat this and frat that. So that's kind of how those guys are, man. He hadn't changed a bit, but I'm sure Al has some more intense memories that he spent with Coach.
Well,
Well, Al, let me tell you, when I'm a little bit behind you, I got to A&T in the 95, I think. Okay. And when I first got to A&T, they told me about the Blue Death defense. That's why that name, Blue Death Valley, it's always stuck. Because I was like, that's a cool name, Blue Death.
It is, man.
And they told me, they said the one thing about our defense is you could stand in the top of the bleachers and close your eyes, and you could tell what was going on just by hearing the collisions at midfield. They said these guys, everybody was just hitting people. I said, okay, I love it. Sign me up. I want to see everything. So Al, tell me about this Coach Ferguson and that whole early Blue Death defense coming to fruition.
Well, my first couple of years, we were 3-8 or 3-9, something like that, and then we were 5-6, and we needed to change the identity. And the DBs actually adopted. We became known as the Black Sheep because that was our nickname for ourselves. Because every time something went wrong, we were blamed for it. Whether we got beat deep or we didn't come up and run support. And so Ferg, man, he was one of those ones, he hated to lose. And so he was real intense, whether it was, and sometimes he would become intense in moments that we were like, what's going on? And whether he was halfway putting on his jacket and he would just go berserk. And so he has some legendary tirades, you know, that since this is family program, I can't repeat
Yeah, please.
all of them. But one of the funniest stories of my red shirt year. I was recruited as a quarterback. I was moved over to play defensive back, and the thought was I was going to help the secondary out, add some depth, and then go back in the spring. And so, I was just kind of getting acclimated, the backpedaling, turning, running, that sort of thing. And in the game, it was probably early second quarter, something like that. And out of the blue, Coach Ferguson calls my name, Barnett. I was like, oh, shucks. So I went to get my helmet, and I came back, yeah, coach. He said, bring me some water. I didn't live that down all year.
Oh, man.
But the thing was, whether he was asking you to get water, or he was asking you to make a play, or he was asking you to dig deep, he was intense. And so that was one of the things that I took. And actually, as my son was growing and developed as a quarterback, I actually had him sit down to talk to my son and help him understand and recognize coverages, because he could do. He could put together a game plan from both sides of the ball, and he had been successful at both sides of the ball, whether it was the defense leading the country in turnover margin, whether it was offensive or defensive players of the year. He had that under his belt and had coached tremendously well in various leagues as well. So again, he did a phenomenal job of tutoring and mentoring my son early on to help him understand that chess match between offensive and defensive side of the ball.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about your son in a second. We're gonna get to that. But Craig, so you were, I don't know if you know this, Al, but Craig was one of the original season ticket holders at Aggie Stadium. So he saw all your action up close and personal. Craig, give me an idea. What was it like to sit the 50-yard line and watch that Blue Death defense smoke people? What was that like?
The Blue Death defenses of the early 1990s were a thing of beauty. They would put a lot of proteins to shame now. I mean, these guys were huge. They were big, physical. Just really would rip your head off. I think the best time I ever can remember that team having was up at Howard, and it was Howard's homecoming, and they had like 30,000 people crammed in the green stadium, if you can believe that. I mean, there was wall-to-wall people up in D.C., and that defense dominated. I mean, literally dominated. They were ripping people's heads off. They were, picking off passes, taking them back for TDs, picking up, blocking the extra points and taking them to the left of the field. Blew them out at their homecoming. I've never seen such a sad bunch of bison in all my life. Great. I mean, they and Bill Hayes just had a big grin on his face. About midway through the fourth quarter, he had it salted away. I think Connell gave a handoff to Barry Turner. He took it like 42 yards and sealed it for the day. And then the A&T fans were just like incredibly loud. And by the time the game was over with, there was nobody left in there but A&T fans. Mm-hmm. They cleared out that whole 30,000.
So I want people to understand why we call the website Blue Death Valley. Is this basically this gentleman right here and his team, that whole era? That's what put A&T, for me. I'm not a old wily guy. I'm in my mid 40s, but that was what made A&T just resonate with me, is that defense y'all had back then. And so do you still keep up with Coach Bill Hayes? You still get a chance to talk with him sometimes?
I've seen him on a couple of occasions, especially around the Celebration Bowl.
Yeah.
So I've seen him a couple of times there, and when you're on the defense side of the ball, and Doug can attest to this, you tend to spend more time with your defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, and so most of my interactions were with the late Robert Pulliam or Coach Nick Ferguson, that sort of thing. So.
Okay, so it was almost like the Chicago Bears, where they had Mike Ditka and what was
Buddy Ryan.
Buddy Ryan. Was it almost like that, like a split like that?
You know what? I never thought about that. But again, you're provocative question is on point. It's on point. As a matter of fact, there were days when, because again, Ferg was a competitor, and so was Hayes, and there were days when you can clearly tell there were some issues between, the offense being put in a position where they were deemed successful for the day, and at the defense's expense, and there were some days when the defense would absolutely stone the offense, and they would just, hey, you go work on your, we got some things to work on, and so it was, again, highly competitive individuals that hated to lose and hated to look second best. So, and again, that was one of the things that I thought that really helped us, because we were tremendously competitive even in practice. That's awesome.
That's awesome. All right, so here's a story. So me and this gentleman, me and Al, we actually met. It was a chance encounter. I would say almost 7 years ago. We were both. Do you remember this day, Al? We were both at Page High School. I was on one side of the field. He was on the other. And the thing is, we both had our sons there. And I was working with my son on how to throw a spiral. He was like 7 years old at the time, and he was working with his son on this, some more advanced quarterback mechanics. And we saw each other and said, hey, you doing the same thing I'm doing? We introduced each other. And his son at the time was a quarterback for Lewis Center. And Lewis Center was loaded. They were like, they were recruiting, they were paying kids, all this stuff. So they had like a monster team, and they would beat all the rec. They would beat all. I used to hate Lewis Center. They used to beat all the rec center teams, right? But so
hey, I just want you to know now, you're causing Doug some heartache now, because Doug is on the other side. Doug knows all about Lewis. So he's gonna have some nightmares tonight.
Hey,
so it wasn't
no
fair.
comment.
But make a long story short, flash forward to last year, right? And I see that same young gentleman who was getting trained by Big Al on the field. And this time I see him at Grimsley High School, and he's pretty much setting the world on fire. I think I was the first person on social media to make the declaration that he was the best high school quarterback in the state of North Carolina. This is where everybody else got on the bandwagon. I saw him play. I was like, my God, that kid has it. So Alonza Barnett Jr, he is currently star quarterback at Grimsley. They won the state. He led them to the state championship last year. He was an MVP of the whole state championship game, and now they were undefeated. And now they're back again. They're still the #1 team in the state. He's still the best quarterback in the state of North Carolina, and he's already, bad news, Aggies. We lost one. He's already committed to James Madison. It's a commitment. Now he ain't signed yet. So we'll work on that. But Al, that has got to be, because I know I was with you that day. That has got to be the greatest feeling to see your son go out there and not really, only following your footsteps. As far as athletically being a great football player, but just being a tremendous leader. And I tell you, he gives the best interviews. I talked to him after some of the games I was covering for the newspaper. So well spoken. You did an awesome job with him. But that has to be a great honor too, just to know that your son is going to be the next Barnett to do things on a big scale.
Well, my theory, I guess, and my approach has been, I don't care as much about being a great athlete as, I want him to be a great person.
Yes.
And A&T has had a lot to do with it. No matter where he goes in life, the agreement has been A&T is and always will be home. Both my wife and I are graduates of A&T. He's a graduate of the Early Child Education Center. He was on campus many times for camps. He was a ball boy for a couple of years, so he knows T-Bone and all those guys, Billy and Trina, and they embraced him and treated him, like family. And so some of the stories of him being around Coach Broadway and now Coach Wash, again, I can't say enough. And I'm proud of both him and my daughter, because at the end of the day, I mean, as a father, this is a crazy world out here.
Yes, sir.
And so, anytime, Doug, I know you have kids as well, And anytime you can guide your children to be in a situation where they can make an informed decision for themselves, that's great. I didn't have a whole lot to do with the recruiting, other than I would give him some guidance and kind of give him some context. But he came up with his own criteria. He talked to the coaches. He put things in perspective. He made a list of things that he wanted and liked. And he's one of those individuals that wants to go away and wants to have his own set of experiences. So I understand that.
Yeah, and like I was giving you a hard time, but
You're
I love
supposed
that.
to. You're supposed to.
And listen, I love that kid. I'm gonna be rooting for him no matter what, man. Well, I don't care where he plays at.
Right.
But it's awesome. And your daughter's she's a great track star, right? She's a track and field athlete.
She's coming along. This past summer, she won the national championships, 13, 14-year-old, in both the 100-meter and 200-meter hurdles. Woo. So she's coming along, and was really proud of her because she stepped up to the challenge. She has her own mindset, but during the pandemic, she was up as he was at 4 a.m. and we were hitting the road by 4:30, 4:25. At 5 a.m., we're turning the lights on, and we're at track practice. And so with them being at home, that happened 3, 4, 5 days a week, and it made a difference. It really paid off.
So when you gonna write this book, man, or at least do some motivational speaking or something? You got to give back to us, man, because you got too much wisdom and just real world experience, and now you got another generation of your kids coming through. So what are you doing now? What's keeping you busy now?
Well, first of all, my life is an open book. Anytime I come across individuals that have questions, again, I'm more than happy to share. As a matter of fact, along this journey, I've come across so many individuals. Obviously, we all know Alan Hooker,
yes, sir.
And he gave me a lot of insight regarding the quarterback position, that sort of thing. And that led me down to Quincy Avery. Alonza and I have been back and forth to Atlanta, training with him. We came across Danny O'Brien locally, who did a phenomenal job with them. And so, there's so many people. Duke Howell, Sam Howell's dad, gave me a tremendous amount of information to help me, kind of see behind the veil and learn how to deal with the coaches in this whole recruiting game. So that has been phenomenal. As far as what I'm doing now, I'm a consultant, plan giving consultant, so I work with some nonprofits to help them establish a plan giving program. So it's a nice consultant role, gives me a lot of flexibility, and I'm also having some conversations down the road about my next move at the completion of these contracts. So, again, really love where I am right now, the people that I'm working with, and then also it's given me an opportunity to enjoy the last few months of my son being in high school and under our roof, and so it's been great.
Okay, real quick, do they play Ragsdale this year? Because we got two guys who are big Ragsdale fans, and
we do play Ragsdale. I am a huge Coach Johnny Boykin fan.
That's right. That's right.
Our sons played together on Danny O'Brien's 7-on-7 team. His dad is a phenomenal motivator, a great individual. I keep in contact with him typically, every couple of weeks, and actually he and my wife sang in a gospel choir together. So again, small world.
Yeah. Okay. So are you going to take it a little bit easy on Ragsdale this year, or you're not going to make any promises on that? Because Doug and Craig they blew what was that purple and white. They beat
blue and white.
Blue and white. My bad.
Don't get that wrong. Don't get that wrong.
Well, you might have to put the kiddies to bed that night.
Okay. Hey, but one thing though, we do have a big game this weekend against Central. And I know you probably had a lot of wars against those buzzards over the years, but we're kind of coming to this game a little bit wounded. We're 0-2 for the first time in I think 11 years. in your opinion, what does the A&T secondary need to do to get back on the right page? Because I'm sure you watched most of the games this year. What can we do as far as our DBs to get back to get better?
Well, you know, unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to see very much at all. So I'm going to leave it to you experts because, you know, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm kind of a closet Blue Death Valley supporter. So I see some of the stuff that you say. I'm like, ooh. That was kind of sharp. I can't comment on that one. But I like what he's saying there. Again, it's good to have passionate fan bases that that support it. So I mean, you do an absolutely phenomenal job, and I'm just a big believer. You can't make improvements until you really look honestly at yourself in the mirror and figure out where you are, so that you can, you know, again, chart a path to where you want to go. Ironically, I was watching some of the Furman games as I was on the road. We were headed up to JMU's first home game, and the Duke game, we were actually headed to Pinecrest. So they played on Friday night. So, you know, I've been running with my son back and forth. So I haven't seen them play. I've had to depend on your expert commentary. I've heard some of the information about the hydration, that sort of thing. You know, candidly, as I've taken my son through this process, I've become an avid reader and scientist, if you will, in the human performance area. And hydration and sleep and supplements and you know, having a good chiropractor. I mean, there's so many things that really go into an athletic program and developing athletes. It's you know, again, technology has changed and we've come a long way. So
so with that being said, how do you like our chances on Saturday? First of all, let me start with Craig. Let's go around the horn, and I'll let everybody give their 2 cents. So what are your thoughts about the outcome on Saturday, A&T versus North Carolina Central, Craig?
I think it's going to be a really good ball game. I'm real anxious to see what we're going to look like, what we will look like now that we hopefully are back to full strength. I think that's been the missing element. Central's going to throw everything, including the kitchen sink at us, so we need to be ready for that. Trey Oliver likes to throw in a couple gimmick plays. But I like A&T's depth, and you're playing at home for the first time in 2 years. The crowd's going to be hyped. I like A&T in this one, 31-14.
Okay, 31-14. Doug?
Well, I'm not going to give you a score. I'm no longer going to pick a score anytime my Aggies are involved. Of course, I'd like us to win the ball game. Excited to get back home in the friendly confines of Aggie Stadium. Looking forward to the guys going out there giving their best effort. Like we said, it's a rivalry game. You can throw all the records out the window. You can throw 2 years ago and our 99-0 out the window. It's all about this weekend. So I'm looking for our guys to show up, take care of business early. You know, let's not give those guys a chance to believe. Let's stomp them out early. You know, let's get it rolling so we can get back to the tailgate and have a good time and get back to enjoying ourselves down there on Lindsay and Sullivan. So I got the Aggies big.
You guys winning big. Though. You have so we are winning big. It's not going to be a close.
I got the Aggies winning big, man. I think the juice from being back at home and the Aggie spirit takes us over the top.
Yeah. All right. Hold on, Al. So can you see my shirt? You see that?
99-0.
2 years of complete domination. Okay. so listen. I'm about to make. I need air horn. Jamaican air horn, Doug. Okay, all right. So I'm about to make a prediction here. Okay. This side, no, there you go. This side with this side of the shirt would not be updated. Okay, that's going to say 0. Right.
Whoa.
So I'm predicting another shutout. I looked at some film today, and I saw some things I think we're going to be able to exploit. I did not like their interior offensive line. If we get some of those guys that were missing back on defensive line, if we get them back on Saturday, I think that's going to be a major boost to everything. Like Coach Washington said, the best pass defense is a pass rush. I think we're going to get a good pass rush. I think we're going to stop their running game, even though they do have a stable of some, really good young running backs. If they can't get to the line of scrimmage, it doesn't really matter. I think we're going to eat, and eat some more on both sides of the line of scrimmage. I think Fowler's going to go deep a couple times. Might not be. I think they're going to try to slow the game down once they start getting their brains beat in. So I think we're going to be. It's only going to be in the 30s. So I'm thinking like 35-0 this year. It's not going to be 54 or 45. It's going to be 35-0. But they will not score again. I want to say they might not cross the line of scrimmage, but that could be a little bit too much. Not the line of scrimmage, the 50-yard line. They will cross the. I'll say they'll cross the 50-yard line once or twice, but they won't get in the end zone. And 35-0 is my prediction.
What's your over/under on the personal foul penalties?
We're gonna have about 3. But
us or them.
We're gonna have 3 because I think Coach Washington's like, I'll take that if y'all just go ahead and play lights out. I think he'll suck that up. That's my opinion.
Dang.
So Al, tell me, what were your thoughts, man?
Well, I was thinking my last 2 years against Central, I think it was 88-3. So I think it was 48-3 and 40-0, something like that. So
okay.
I
get him a shirt.
I believe we win big. I mean, you get
that deserves a shirt as well. Yeah.
I can't touch that. I mean, that's
triple digits. This time next year, it will be triple digits. They'll still have that 0, but it'll be triple digits on the other side. So don't. That's my prediction. Bold prediction. Yeah.
I hope you're right.
I think you're in good standing. I think you'll be fine with that prediction.
Oh wow, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, listen, guys, I know we got a lot of stuff to do until then. You heard from Carl Hairston about the safety protocols at Aggie Stadium. Make sure you bring your vaccination card or documentation. If not, go get you a test and show that to the people at the stadium. There's, I think, 14 different stations where you show that, and then you'll get a wristband. And you can go in the stadium and take care of your business and have fun. And also, when you get there, pay attention to the halftime. Before the halftime band performance, they're going to bring all the Hall of Famers out, and Al, you're going to be one of the guys getting honored there with a bunch of other all-star Aggies, some legendary exploits. I'm looking forward to it. So guys, until next time, for Craig Turner, Doug Brown, and new Hall of Fame inductee Alonza Barnett, I am Semaj Marsh, and this has been Inside the Valley. See you next week.